last night on The Bachelor.
This is really good for your skin. Melt the butter down, apply the butter. Oh yeah, there it is.
What?
Come here, please.
Tell me before I come there.
I want you to rub butter on my foot.
No.
Pam, please. I have country crock.
No.
Ryan! Ryan! Ryan!
It is week 10 and we have arrived at Fantasy Suite Week. And when it's Fantasy Suite Week, you know what that means. Right?
Means you had sex.
But it also means we're one step closer to finishing this godforsaken season and taking a much needed break. So we can do this, folks. We can make it. Just a few more episodes to go. Now, we begin week 10 with the 3 women remaining, pondering over their future with Matt and eyeing each other down as one of them goes off to spend the night with their collective boyfriend. And this is a very important time for each of these women's relationships with Matt. Spending that night together without the cameras is so important to talk family, where they might live, work, religion, politics, and you know. But before we get to the hometown dates, apparently there's something Matt needs to do before he can truly feel he's ready to open up with the remaining women.
For my relationships to move forward with these women, there's a conversation I need to have. And that's with my dad.
Yup, they brought in his dad. And what follows is a very intimate conversation with Matt and his father, discussing how Matt's dad wasn't there for him, how he wants to address and confront that so he knows what not to do in the future, and to possibly salvage their father-son relationship. And really, this all feels like a conversation that should be happening behind closed doors. We see pushback from Matt's dad saying he wasn't perfect and neither is Matt. There are excuses thrown out, and Matt's dad says he's not here to discuss his relationship with Matt's mom. He's here to celebrate Matt's success.
If we wanted to go celebrate, we'd go to Chuck E. Cheese. I wanted you here because I want to have a relationship with you going forward, and for me to have that with you, you have to know where I'm at.
But at the end of the day, it's not a celebration or a pizza party at Chuck E. Cheese Matt wanted. It's not new shoes, new clothes, or new things that he needed.
I didn't need any shoes. I didn't need any pizza. I need a dad.
But eventually, the conversation ends with Matt saying he forgives his dad. And his dad says he's sorry for hurting him, and he wants to work on whatever he needs to in order to help his son be happy and be able to have a healthy relationship. And so, they hug it out. And I certainly hope this is something Matt wanted and asked for, and not something that was exploited by production for entertainment, because there are dangerous stereotypes at play. And during the airing of this conversation, Matt posted a statement about it on his Twitter page saying, "All I hope is that people watch that conversation with nuance, care, and also an understanding that there are real systemic issues at play. I'm so proud of myself for being vulnerable, and I'm proud of my mother. I wouldn't be who I am without my dad, that's a fact." So with that, the show then moves on to the first fantasy suite of the week, which is going to Michelle. And Michelle is wondering, what's up, Matt? What are we going to be doing for our fantasy suite date?
This is going to be a traditional Pennsylvania Dutch spa day. To be honest with you, I have no idea what a Pennsylvania Dutch spa day is.
Oh yeah, totally heard of that. It's basically the same thing as an authentic Pennsylvania Dutch Christmas.
What about an authentic Pennsylvania Dutch Christmas? Drink some Glühwein, enjoy some Hasenpfeffer. Enjoy Christmas with St. Nicholas's rural German companion, Belschnickel.
Yes, that.
Well, here it is, Matt and Michelle's relaxing spa day featuring porridge, a bear in the corner, and a tub full of week-old milk. Because apparently a Pennsylvania Dutch spa day is supposed to be as relaxing as possible, just as long as you're not lactose intolerant. So the two do this.
That sounds terrible.
And then is that butter? That's That's a tower of butter they're about to rub all over each other. What is happening this episode? I feel like we need that guy who reacts to weird recipes in here.
Okay. Then we're gonna add our butter to the pasta.
Ooh, look at all that butter,
and
y'all.
the ingredients will
don't
be
it
in
look
the
wonderful?
description
And I
box
bet
below.
it's salty.
Don't you worry,
Yes,
okay?
God.
So after seasoning themselves before Fantasy Suite night, Michelle and Matt head into the evening portion of their date. Here, naturally, Matt opens up to Michelle about the experience he had with his father, as it's important for Matt to let Michelle know the things that he is working on before he's ready for that ultimate commitment.
I just wanted you to know where I was coming from and like what I was working on in my life so that I was ready for the type of commitment that comes at the end of this.
And Michelle says that though she had a very positive example of a loving relationship in her life with her parents, she doesn't feel like that defines someone's ability to be in love. And she sees that ability in Matt. So her feelings for him haven't changed, they've only grown. And with that, it's time to whip out the Fantasy Suite card, which Michelle accepts, and the two head to their room, where Michelle tells Matt how she truly feels.
I'm gonna say it. I love you.
That's it? Just a kiss? Okay, well, I guess he didn't respond with his typical thank you for sharing that, so I suppose it could be worse.
Early the next morning.
I love that I get to tell you that I'm in love with you.
Thank you for sharing that again with me.
Oh no, not again. So Matt sends off Michelle, and it's on to the next Fantasy Suite, which is going to be with Bree. But of course, before we can get into that, they need to insert that awkward moment where Michelle returns and everyone avoids talking about why Michelle smells like milk. And this whole Fantasy Suite thing is really getting to one woman in particular.
Just the thought of literally, like, him being in bed with someone else, that made me sick to my stomach.
So after a whole lot of awkward stares between the ladies, it's time for Bree's date. And if you thought rolling around in Derry was fun, get ready for a whole Fantasy Suite date, walking through the woods and stuff. And as these two journey through the forest, Matt's got a little bit of a secret.
But the truth is, I'm not letting her in on the secret that I've never been camping in the woods.
So while Matt goes around navigating the forest trying to look like Survivor Man, really he looks like this.
Day one, I'm in the interior of the vast Pennsylvania wilderness. It's hot today. The sun is in the 2/3 easterly quadrant, which would make it about 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
So this is it. Yep. Bree's Fantasy Suite is going to be spent out here in a small tent. Nah, of course it's not, but with the way Bree's been edited this season, you believed it for a second, right? So the two then grab a few logs and make the most of their campfire date and talk about their hometown and how comfortable Matt feels around Bree. And as this transitions into the night portion of their date, Bree's primary focus is figuring out if Matt is serious about getting down on one knee, as she herself is ready.
I did want to backtrack a little bit too, because I'm just wanting to know how you feel about an engagement coming up.
And this once again brings Matt to talking about his conversation with his father, and how having that conversation has been a major part in him moving forward. Which Bree says she understands, as she too has had a dad who wasn't there for the milestone moments in her life. And she wants to reassure Matt that she is still 100% ready for an engagement after this, and also...
I really am so in love with you, because it means the world to me that you can understand me.
And you know what that means. The Fantasy Suite card comes out, they kick out the crew, and Matt and Bree spend the night building forts and having a pajama party. So it's the next morning. Matt and Bree wake up after their night away from the cameras, and Matt decides to cook Bree a Pennsylvania Dutch spa day.
Oh my god.
Never be too much butter.
And apparently that night, Matt told Bree he's ready for an engagement. But before it's time to get down on one knee, there's a whole lot still to get to, like Matt's final Fantasy Suite date with Rachael, aka Pouty McGee. So you know the drill, Bree comes in, all three women stare awkwardly away from each other, and Rachael heads on her date, which is starting off with a ceramics class. But as the two begin their date, Matt's noticing that Rachael's head is not quite in the game. So they stop the class, and Rachael sits down with Matt to tell him why she's feeling off.
Like, I've been getting in my mind thinking, like, if your mind's changed about how you feel for me and everything, you know? I just don't know how I would be able to, like, handle losing you.
And Matt says that his mind hasn't changed, especially after that skydiving accident where Matt, for the first time, thought about what life would be like if Rachael wasn't around.
I'm gonna continue to show you how I feel about you, and where I'm at with you is I'm falling in love with you.
I'm with you.
Oh, cool. He's telling Rachael he's falling in love with her, but when Michelle or Bree said it to him, all they got was a kiss. Cool, cool, cool. I swear, with Rachael, Matt gets all lovey-dovey when she expresses her feelings to him, but with everyone else, his response is,
Thank you for your feedback.
So Rachael is reassured, she has her confidence back, and the two can return to the other room and commence their date role-playing that scene from Ghost.
I just really feel like I gained that confidence back.
What are you doing? No!
One rule I asked you to follow. One.
Look!
And so we move on to the evening portion of the date, where Rachael and Matt sit down to continue their talks on where their relationship is going. And here there are two things of note. One, Matt seems so much more invested in Rachael than either Michelle or Bree.
Tonight, I'm just thinking about what life would look like with Rachael, the man that I want to be and the family I want to have, and she continues to blow me away.
And two, in this section, there's yet another part of the show that was cut. Remember this from the previews?
I do acknowledge color in every sense. At the end of the day, like, love is love. It doesn't matter what it looks like.
Yeah, not a part of the final edit. Certainly cut because of all the controversy surrounding Rachael from outside of the show. And well, the date moves on, and next is that fantasy suite card inviting Rachael and Matt to spend the night together, where Rachael gets a whole frickin' fireworks show. Sorry, Michelle and Bree, this one's just for Rachael. And this really exemplifies the narrative that this episode is telling. That the drama of the episode and this season from this point on isn't which of these three women is Matt going to send home. Instead, it's become, can anything get in between Matt's relationship with Rachael? So when it's time for that final rose ceremony and Michelle gets the first rose, leaving just Bree and Rachael, it's no surprise when this is how it goes down.
Rachael.
And with that, Bree is headed home. Matt walks her out and sits her down for a final goodbye, saying that there's nothing wrong with Bree, there's nothing that caused this, nothing he can point to say that's why. It's just a feeling that he has.
It's nothing to do with you and who you are and how incredible you are. And everything to do with what my heart's leading me.
So Matt walks Bree out, says one last goodbye, and heads back to his final two, while Bree is left wondering what happened.
It's hard because what I thought we had was special, but couldn't have been all for nothing.
Oh, something tells me, Bree, it won't all be for nothing. Paradise is calling. So that's it for this recap of Week 10 and Fantasy Suites. We are now on the cusp of the finale, where we'll get to see if this season has any semblance of a happy ending, and of course, the after the final rose. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, as tomorrow I'll be talking about all that in the finale preview breakdown, and then next week, we close off the season. So until then, Bachelor Fantake, out.
What?
Come here, please.
Tell me before I come there.
I need to rub butter on my foot.
No.